So, does anybody want to go to a gun range?
We're showing tips for how to shoot afterwards in our
On YouTube.
Yes.
There we go. You can
Not really.
Not really.
but you can watch
We
us
had
on
him going
YouTube.
there, Jordan.
Yeah. As always, so share truth, apply scripture. We do appreciate you tuning in or listening to the podcast. If you'd like to listen to other podcasts, it's engagemagazine.net/podcast. You can find everything there. Guys, we ended the last segment. We're talking about guns. We're talking about self-defense. And there was something that we didn't have time to get into, and I'd like to now. Jordan, you were saying that if someone was coming after you for the gospel, that you want to believe. Now, of course, we never know.
Right.
You know, you never know for sure how you're going to respond to something. But we want to say that you would not defend yourself, and you would, because it would misrepresent the gospel.
Right.
First off, what do you mean?
Yeah. So let me clarify what I mean by defend myself. I'm not saying that I would just open my arms and let them pummel me.
Yeah.
What I am saying is I'm not going to take their life. I'm not going to act in a way that that is a finalizing answer to the situation. You know what I mean? I'm going to act in mercy towards them with a merciful attitude, with a gracious attitude, because I'm not, at that moment not representing myself.
That's good. However, if someone comes in to, you know, to attack your family,
Right? No, there's no discussion there. I'm
Will
going
defend.
to defend them. I'm not going to be happy about it. Definitely not.
right?
But I'm going to.
Well, and here's the thing: there's a huge historical precedent for this, right? We can go back to the apostles.
Right.
Now, you could argue, well, they were, you know, the government was coming after them, so there was no choice. But still, they went to, you know, they went to their to the crucifixion upside
Right.
down. They went to whatever method of execution they had. They went to
All but
it
one was
graciously.
a martyr.
Right, John was the only
Right.
one who died of old age, and even he died in exile on the island of Patmos.
after
so,
a life of torture and
right,
everything.
you know, I mean, these stories are crazy. But when you go beyond the apostolic age and you're looking at first, second, third century Christians, many of them were martyred. And if you're interested in it, I can go ahead and tell you this: Fox's Book of the Martyrs is incredible. And Tom Doyle's book, Standing in the Fire, we've had Tom on. He's a big partner with the Orange Letter Campaign. Even now, we're hearing stories of martyrs who lay down their lives and say, I will not fight you.
And I agree, and we've talked about this before, but you can't, it's inevitable. It's almost impossible to talk about this topic or almost any topic without leading to here. However, I still think it's distinctly two different
It is.
issues.
There are.
You know, self-defense and someone who's laying down their life in the name of Christ.
But I think
we're not all called, a really interesting point that we need to point out, so we're not all of us are called a martyr either.
No,
Right.
I
that's
mean,
right.
you got to look at that too. I mean, the fact that
Called to live
if
the
you're not a
gospel.
martyr, you're not a Christian. You know what I mean? That's not the case for everybody either. So,
Right. So really quick, moving on from the, are you good
yeah,
on that?
that's
Okay.
good.
All right. So really quick, one other question we had to leave very quickly. We kind of all agreed that, you know, general access to weapons
Nukes.
is a good
Oh, sorry.
thing. Yeah. But we do believe in
quit
drawing
playing
the
around
line.
like that.
Here's the thing though. No, seriously, because there are people in our country who say no limits. No,
Yeah.
you know, if there's a weapon the military uses, the citizen should have it. I'm sorry, I don't want Joe Blow driving, flying an F-16.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
I haven't heard that argument in a while, but I'm sure it's out there, and that's
it
an
is out there, and
extreme
I have
case.
heard it. It is. So we do believe that there needs to be some limitation.
And there are limitations.
There are
Yeah.
limitations, and that's the problem. We don't even enforce what's already there.
No, we do. You can't buy an automatic weapon.
Right.
Yeah. You can
Well-
after 6 months an FBI background check,
And
but
Right.
thousands of
Of
dollars.
dollars, yeah.
Right. Okay.
So we get into that, and getting into that begs the question: we have a gun culture in America.
We do.
There's some aspects of gun culture that I personally like. I like that we have so many options for self-defense, for gun options. I like that we have places where you can learn how to use a gun.
Yeah,
By the
exactly.
way, I'm just going to throw this out there. If you have a gun in your home, one, know how to secure it. Two, know how to use it.
yeah.
Period. You have a responsibility there.
Right.
But is the gun culture, can we say, is it fully healthy?
Well, what do you, I mean, it depends. The individuals, I mean, like myself, the way we understand it, I would say that.
All right, let me rephrase.
Yeah.
Can it be unhealthy?
Yeah.
Can you take it too far and make the gun
I think
an idol?
anything that's amoral, you can be used for good or bad. So certainly it could be taken too far. But the problem, and we've talked about this before, you've got the individuals that we're talking about, and you've got the agenda that wants to remove. They're not out to limit gun control. They're out to remove this. They've said it. They've come so far to say that they're here to remove this. Right. They want to amend the Second Amendment.
Well, look at the mayor of London recently tweeted, why would you need a knife? Because there's been so many stabbings in London.
Boxes. And,
I
mean, there's a lot. I mean,
but here's the thing: look at the arguments that you use for a knife, and it's a tool.
Yeah.
We use the same arguments that we just use for a gun, right? Now, granted, different because you can't cut boxes and things like that. So, but there is something there to be said.
Yeah.
You can make an idol out of anything, and honestly, you can make an idol of guns, of gun culture, and we're not saying don't support guns.
Yeah.
We've already said that we do. If you missed that first segment, engagemagazine.net/podcast, we went into that. What we are also saying is that the heart is an idol factory. And we can take wonderful things, we can take fun things, and we can turn them into idols. And that is something that we should constantly be aware of.
And so, I mean, talking about, now we're kind of getting into the limit, of guns. But, I mean, you can look at all the numbers, and it goes to show you that you can remove all the guns in the world, and it's not going to stop someone.
People are still going to see it.
Yeah.
So if your ultimate goal is to get the satisfaction of, or thinking that you're going to get the numbers to where you want them, then you'll constantly be taking away or taking away rights, inalienable rights.
And here's the thing: we do see this as a right.
Yeah.
And where does the right come from?
Yeah.
The self-defense certainly comes from God Himself and the Scriptures. What that looks like. Our founding fathers thought that it was a good idea for firearms, and that, which I agree with. So there's certain things that you can talk about, but self-defense is non-negotiable.
Right. Yeah.
No, I completely agree. So I recently interviewed a guy named David Barton. If you listen to American Family Association or American Family Radio, you're familiar with his name. He's the founder of Wall Builders. I interviewed him for an upcoming article in the AFA Journal. We don't plug the journal enough, Jordan. Jordan and I both write for the journal.
The journal really needs to be plugged now.
Yeah. So if you want, information, it's afajournal.org. But the article that he and I are talking about is freedom of conscience. And that kind of goes into the things we've been talking about. But he says this: in every right that we have, there's a corresponding responsibility. We have the freedom of speech. No. You have the responsibility to tell the truth.
That's right.
In the freedom of the Second Amendment, the freedom to bear arms. No. You have the responsibility to not shed innocent blood and to protect innocent blood.
That's right.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
That is excellent.
That, I think, is the best way that we can view this, because if we view guns as a responsibility, it changes the argument.
It does. It changes everything about it. The word responsibility has a weight to it.
Exactly.
Nobody wants responsibility. I mean, come on. But a responsibility, that's something you have to think. It's not
Is that why I keep getting your bills in the mail? Just kidding.
I'm sorry. We'll say that later. But with a freedom, I mean, it's a good word for it.
Right.
But it allows for some immaturity there.
Right.
A responsibility to defend the lives of the innocent. That's really what should define it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a misunderstanding. I'm sorry for interrupting you, but I just want to say
real quick.
I think it's a misunderstanding when people think when people like myself and others fight for their inalienable right to self-defense, in this case a gun, that we automatically get excited about using it. That's just the most bizarre thing.
The thing is, using it should always be heavy. I went through an enhanced.
It's a last resort. It's not something we ever want to do, but we also want to be able to do it in the scenarios of which I mentioned about the 60-year-old widow woman.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. And again, there should be a weight. But
was that fast enough?
That was good. So any discussion that we have on guns, and here's the thing: in the very beginning, we said we are not doing this in response to something that has happened. We're not doing this in response to a shooting. We're not doing this in response to policy. We're simply discussing the issue. But anytime you do discuss the issue, you also need to address the fact that there have been real families that have gotten phone calls. Your child was at school today and there was a shooting.
Yeah.
How do we, in one hand, hold compassion and empathy and mourn with those who mourn, and in the other hand, hold the responsibility of the freedom to bear arms?
Yeah, that's such a difficult thing, but I think that those two are freedom to bear arms, but those situations that arise, they should inform one another. So you have, every time you pick up a gun, what should be in your mind is, I now have the power to take a life.
And that weight should weigh on you.
That should be really weighty. It shouldn't be something that you just think off. And I know that sometimes people come back from war, they've been around guns, they become desensitized, and there's people out there who can't help that, who are very responsible with guns, by the way. But for me, every time I pick up a gun, and just for me personally, I don't enjoy shooting a gun. Not a judgment on them.
I do.
And I know you do, and that's great. But every time I pick up
even
one,
hunting, I love hunting, but there's a weight. I'm taking the life of an animal.
Yeah. It's a serious thing. It's
and a handgun is even so much more.
Yeah.
So what do you say, Wesley?
Well, I mean, the first thing when you're talking about, obviously we need to show compassion to the individual that's lost, and that starts with not talking about removing the Second Amendment within hours of, or
Which
within
has
minutes.
happened.
not a good
Oh, that
idea.
happened every time.
But it also means not saying don't take our Second Amendment hours within an event happening. I mean, that happens on both sides, to be honest.
It falls on our shoulders to not politicize somebody's death.
Yeah, it politicizes. But I would also say, I mean, every time, and to my knowledge, there's people that respond to the. It starts with we're removing it, and then there's a response. Otherwise, if you're silent on the issue, then you're compliant and you want them to take your gun.
Yeah.
So the other team needs to just not say we're going to remove the Second Amendment from the very beginning and focus on the families. And then I think the second thing you can do is really focus on enforcing the laws that were already in place. Almost every time a shooting takes place, they've already broken the law. Right. They were shot in a gun-free zone. A lot of the times, in like the Parkland shooting, they were not supposed to. They should have been arrested. They were arrested 15 times. They had no business having a gun, and the law enforcement just didn't do their job. So we need to enforce the law. We need to not politicize it, and we do need to pray and have some. I know there's all kind of ministries that go on site and go through the just the mourning that it takes with it.
Yeah, and the thing is, there should be a mourning period. There should be that time. And again, we should save any policy change for distance. There should be a time to reflect. There should be a time to think. There should be a time to discuss. And that really is the point of this program, where, you know what, you may not agree with us, and that's perfectly okay. We'd love to have dialogue with you. You can email us at engagefaq@afa.net, where every day we seek to share truth and apply Scripture. We'll see you next week.